funny. People always be like, don't forget about the little people. It's like, why do they refer themselves as little anyway, you know? Why don't you just get big with me? Feel me? They can see it in my eyes.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of John's Entitled Podcast, a partner of MoshPitNation.com. This week's guest is Justin Graves, drummer for the band Vexes. Also, you might recognize the name, for Justin was the drummer of A Life Once Lost, an older metalcore band, as it were, from the early 2000s or so. Interestingly enough, this conversation actually happened in a very interesting manner, in my opinion. A friend of mine, Alfonso Seville of the band Heartsick, who have been on this podcast and who I've talked about a little bit over the last couple of weeks, most recently with the Rob Rivera episode of Nonpoint. My wife and I were at a bar, and the bar has little to no service. It's basically a black hole. And the thing I enjoy about that is it requires the people who go to that bar to actually interact with one another and have a good time and not basically be on their phones all the fucking time. I know as a 30-something, I'm just as guilty of being on my phone when I'm out in public with people as everybody else. But this place kind of forces social interaction, and it's one of the reasons I enjoy going to this bar, other than just, the other reasons of going to a bar, which is drinking and so on and so forth. So I'm at the bar with my wife, and I end up getting notifications from Facebook somehow that I'm being tagged in a post or a live video or something to that effect, but it doesn't tell me whose live video it is, just who tagged me in the video. So I'm able to read my friend Alfonso's comment basically saying, check these guys out, we should book them, you should get them on your podcast, so on and so forth. Now, mind you, I can't see what band it is, I can't see anything about the video, other than it's a live video, so I just have no clue what the fuck is even going on. So fast forward, just a lot of me commenting to my friend that I can't see anything and I don't know what he's tagging me in, and so on and so forth. And then it just kind of goes like that for a little bit, and then eventually I just kind of was like, tired of going the back and the forth and all that kind of stuff. So I just tell him, I go, well, if they're any good or they want to be on my podcast and you think they're good, then fuck it, have them reach out to me, I'll have them, I'll let them be on, no big deal. So enough time goes by, I get out of the bar, and I'm on my way home, and I kind of can see that this band is doing a live video, Facebook chat kind of thing at a bar itself, or themselves, I should say. And I was like, all right, they look, like they could be fun and all this kind of stuff. And then, I kind of had too many to drink, so I just sent them a Facebook message and was like, yo, my friend said you guys are awesome, and I should get on my podcast, so fuck it, let's make this happen. They reach out to me a day later, and they tell me to up their publicist, and immediately I'm kind of a little sketched out because I'm like, I'm probably not going to get them because publicists typically don't think I have a good enough reach for their bands, their clients, and so forth. So I ended up reaching out to their publicist, and I want to actually right now give a huge thanks to Natalie over at Adrenaline PR. She not only set up this interview with Justin Graves, but also the next week's episode you'll end up hearing, which is Dave Shivari from Il Nino/Terror Universal. So huge thanks to Natalie from Adrenaline PR for setting this up. And so we ended up getting this set up pretty quickly. And the funny thing about it is I'm familiar with the band A Life Once Lost. They are obviously an older band. But the unfortunate thing with doing interviews with bands that don't technically have anything out yet, other than maybe one or two songs, nor any press, is it just gets difficult to kind of be the guinea pig for a lot of people as far as what do you ask, because I don't necessarily want to ask questions that are super cliche, but without there being an album out and without really being able to discuss much about that, it's kind of hard to say much, especially when a band hasn't played out a whole lot, they haven't toured, they're still relatively unknown in the grand scheme of things on the internet. So it's one of those where the band Vexes themselves have put out two songs at this point, Plasticine and Lift. So they have two singles out. Plasticine has been doing really well, getting a lot of good buzz about it, going on stuff I think Blabbermouth and some other sites like that. But again, it was just really kind of tough to think of what I wanted to ask Justin and talk about that could fill, about 30 minutes or so without being super cliche. And I think I did a pretty good job. It's always kind of tough when you're doing these interviews with people. And, what's interesting is since I ended up doing this interview with Justin Graves, the episode I did with Glennard, which is now a couple of weeks old, has really done well, surprisingly to me. If you remember in that episode, I kind of had said, and in a few other episodes, basically coming into this new year, I said I wanted to start talking to bands and people from bands that aren't necessarily from genres that I'm super knowledgeable on, and I just wanted to reach out and start doing fun interviews, basically. And the one with Glenn is just caught on so well, and I've gotten nothing but positive feedback. There's been a few things, some fallouts of sorts on Glenn's side, which really sucks. The whole point of me doing the interview with him was that he's from a different genre and a different background than I am, but we know each other and have known each other for a long time, so I figured it would allow us to both be kind of honest and sincere in this. And I think for the most part everybody understood and got why we did it, and that's why it was successful. So as a result of doing that one, shortly after I did this one with Justin, I don't know, maybe these questions won't be so bad, and I just second guess myself a lot as to what is good and what isn't, and I should just get out of my own fucking head, which is something I know I should do. I tend to overthink things a lot and think that things that I do or am associated with are just remedial at best. But being that as it may, the band has a new album getting ready to come out, Vexes, that is, Ancient Geometry, and off the two singles that I already kind of talked about, Plasticine and Lift, it shows that the band kind of is not in the, we'll say, like, metalcore vein, like, you would have thought from A Life Once Lost or a member of. And I think that's kind of the hard part, too, is, you get a band and, they tell you that there are members of X, Y, and Z bands and so forth. And I think it's really hard to not have a preconceived notion of who's in it. And that's something I actually get to talk to Dave Shivari of Terror Universal in next week's episode. I kind of delve into that a little bit more. But it's really interesting to kind of talk to some of these bands and some of the people in these bands that have been doing this for so long, but basically are starting all new in a new era, like in a digital era where social media is king, and it's bands are older. The people in the bands are older, and so they're not 19 and 20 and just hitting the road and touring incessantly and so forth. So it was a lot of fun talking with Justin, and I think even though it was kind of a short conversation, I think it will be fun, and I'm really interested to see what this band does. It's a band that's got a decent buzz around them, like I said, based on their first two singles, mainly Plasticine being the big one. And I'm really interested to see what the rest of this record ends up sounding like. I'm interested to see if the band can actually tour and be a full-on band in that regard. And I would like to see kind of where this band goes, because this is a band I think that could kind of fit in sort of where that Thrice, at least, actually Thrice now is basically newer Thrice. They don't play a whole lot off of the old stuff from what I saw. But with that last Thrice record, like, I could see them fitting into that kind of a world. Same with, maybe even something like a Blind Side or things like that, like, where it kind of is, it's heavy, but it's not. I could also see them being opening for like a band like 100th, and just a lot of bands that have like a ton of energy and really great playing and kind of fill out a sound, but it's not something that can be pigeonholed necessarily into like, oh, you're a metal band and you're going to be with metal bands only. So interestingly enough, I'm really interested to see where this band goes once this record gets released and see what it does for them. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Justin Graves of the band Vexes. So I have the pleasure of talking with Justin Graves, formerly of A Life Once Lost, currently the drummer of a new band, Vexes. How are you doing this evening? Early evening.
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm not enjoying the Arctic cold that we just got in the last couple of weeks, but I saw it looks pretty bad out your way too.
Yeah, I haven't left the house yet today because it's been pretty crazy since last night.
Yeah, I just get really agitated when I spend all the time shoveling my driveway, and then next thing I know, here comes a plow to before I get to the mouth of it, and I'm like, you assholes, and then block me in.
Yeah, I gotta at some point later tonight shovel out my car.
So let's kind of talk a little bit, picking up from A Life Once Lost. You ended up leaving the band around 2011, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's exactly when I left.
Okay. I'm not really going to get into the whole why did you leave. That's kind of all water under the bridge at this point. But what I would like to know is what did you end up doing when you left the band? Because I'm sure something that I've always found kind of fascinating in talking to some people who were in a touring band for a handful of years is kind of the transition out of being in a touring band and kind of going to a more routine, 9-to-5 kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, it was definitely an adjustment. And as far as what I was doing, to be honest, I pretty much toured all the way from, got 16, 17 years old all the way until about 30, which is when, 2011-ish for me. And, it was nice to just take a little bit of time off and live a normal life, not being in a van 200 days a year and playing shows all the time. It was nice to just take a little bit of a break after all that time, just enjoy life a little bit, in one spot.
Yeah. How long till you got the itch to start doing something musically again, though?
I really didn't take all that much time off with playing music. It was just kind of, I had been messing around with a couple different friends with musical ideas and, I had started a couple little projects here and there, but, at the end of the day, I didn't find that momentum that I needed. And, it's tough, as the older you get when you're dealing with people, everybody has more responsibilities and, it's tough to get everybody on the same page, whether it be, time and music and just making sure everybody can get along, you don't realize how lucky you are when you're in a band for a long time with the same people. And, you really have a good flow going. It's not always like that. And I kind of understand, why bands go through different members and different changes because, people just start butting heads. But,
right.
So I had a couple different projects and not all of them had met that criteria of, just everybody being perfect for one another musically or, and to where it was easy for everybody to get together. There's just always something that ends up getting in the way, unfortunately. Finally, I had been looking for some new stuff. I was jamming with Bob Carpenter, from A Life Once Lost, the guitar player,
okay.
Who's actually a new member of Vexes. He's playing bass for us now.
Oh.
And we had a little project going, and we were looking for a singer, and I had actually met Charlie, and he had sent me some stuff that him and John were messing around with, and I really enjoyed that. So, that's kind of where we went with that, and how that ended up happening.
So, how long did it take from just kind of the feeling up process for Vexes to kind of, for everyone to kind of agree, like, okay, I think there's something here, like, let's kind of explore this, a little more in depth, like, not so much like as just kind of like, it's kind of a pickup project, like, we'll kind of get to it when we want, but like, let's take it seriously and kind of see like what we can do with this. When I met them, we still kind of had to figure out one member. That was the three of us. I had kind of gotten a feel for what they were trying to do as far as just musical style in general. And, we kind of seemed all on the same page. We all had gotten along, and once we got a lineup together, and this is earlier before Bob had joined the band, I think our goal was just finish the record. It was sounding really good. It seemed like it was something that we might be able to get a little, just
positive feedback and turned some heads with. So once we had felt really good about it, we decided, all right, from here I guess we'll have to start playing shows and doing what we can with it. There was no huge expectations. It was kind of just like, this is coming out and pretty incredible. We can't wait to just see what happens with it, see the feedback, see, where it takes us, and we still don't even know at this point, but, even just having released some songs finally, it's nice to see where it's gone. It was quite a long process to just get everything up and running, even once the record was done. It was definitely a challenge, in many different aspects,
How,
even to just get where we are at this point.
Yeah. So I guess I didn't realize that you had kind of, I don't know if self-funding is the word I necessarily want to use for the writing of this record, but when kind of sitting down to write the record, what, because kind of the leading thing that a lot of like Revolver and a few other places that I've seen this, like when you put out Plasticine and people, news sites picking up on it, a thing that everyone's kind of running with is like, influenced by or for fans of, I don't know what the better industry term is when doing this, but, saying like Deftones, coming off of like Diamond Eyes and Koi no Yokan and Gore, kind of three sort of kind of more atmospheric-y, kind of heavier records. Thrice just putting out that long title I can never remember correctly, but is probably one of my favorites that they put out. And then even, I see like,
right.
Like the one that kind of is interesting to me is even like, Poison the Well. Like a lot of people would think of like, the first couple of records of theirs, but kind of forget how they went in a completely different direction, more towards the kind of spacey atmospheric stuff like on their last couple of records. So it's interesting to me to see so many people kind of like a band that like I've kind of actually that's not been listed that I kind of was like when I listened to it I was like I could almost see like you guys in like 100th with the record they just put out this past year, Rare, doing really good, where it's kind of like this sort of like dream pop kind of soundscapes kind of thing, but can get kind of heavy and jammy a little bit. And I'm kind of seeing like this weird resurgence of this sound as a whole. So like how long did it kind of take you to figure like that's kind of the route you wanted to go? I mean, at least from the two songs I've been able to hear off this record, it seems like that's kind of the sound that is going to be on this record as a whole. If I'm not, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, first off, that band 100th, I didn't really know a whole lot about them, and John, our guitar player, had mentioned them in the past, and they popped up not too long ago on Spotify or something I was listening to, and I thought it was a really cool sound. And I see what you're saying; it's kind of got that, almost like shoegazy kind of, like you said, dreamy, atmosphere kind of sounding, but it's still really heavy, upbeat, and it's heavy. And according to some people, I guess they've kind of changed their style up a little bit.
They were basically like
sure.
Misery Signals before that. So imagine like if you were Misery Signals and then went to that, which is what they did.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes bands, you can't question their motives too much, without, you don't want to offend people for taking a different route. It's at the end of the day, it's their music and they want to take it in whatever direction, if people don't like it, they don't have to listen to it. But, it's cool to see, a band just go in a different route. And even if it means like something that's a little more accessible, people don't understand, sometimes you want to reach new audiences, not that you have your core fan base and you're, coming from metal and hardcore and even punk, and that kind of stuff. It's great to just open up and try to, cross genre boundaries at times and just open up the spectrum as far as like who you can reach. And that's kind of where we're at. There's so many different influences, and obviously it's easy for people to point out the Deftones one, but once people listen to the record, I think they'll hear more in there, kind of like what you said. You get the Thrice vibe. Cave In. We like bands like Poison the Well, Quicksand. Even like that '90s sound.
Yeah, that
we
like
came
sort of
up with a lot of those kind of bands. Yeah, and really, it's just that whole world that has kind of impacted our musical taste, and we just kind of want to bring the best elements of that into our songwriting. We didn't come into it thinking like we want to sound like anything particular. I think we just have that taste for that sound and that influence, and that heavy dissonant driving music that goes in different directions, from being super heavy to being melodic, but kind of just still sounding like a whole.
Yeah. It's kind of weird today. I was listening to the few songs you guys had and kind of trying to get more of my head wrapped around the music. I also was listening to Silence by Blindside, and I don't know if it's just because I listened to your songs and then that album like back to back, but there was a couple of songs off of Silence that I was like, I kind of get like a little bit of a Blindside vibe at times, and I think it's just more like some of the melody, like the vocal melodies, I think, but
right.
I don't know. It's not really a band I think of that when I'm like, oh, I feel like Blindside's an influence for somebody in a band.
I would definitely say that they are an influence. I mean, I know that I wasn't like very familiar with them, until the past couple of years. It was just not something I was really exposed to. But John and Charlie, are definitely huge fans of that band as well. So you definitely nailed that one. I'm sure that's definitely gotten into their songwriting, among many other things.
So your debut album, Ancient Geometry, as it's called, is getting ready to come out soon. What does the album title mean? And before you answer that, as I kind of was just thinking about it as two abstract words kind of thrown together, I was kind of reading some of the lyrics for the two songs, Lift and Plasticine. I kind of got like a sense of like, almost like, not necessarily a longing for your past, but just kind of like thinking about your past and kind of like not letting it determine your, like, bogging down your future, maybe. And I know that you're the drummer and maybe don't necessarily know much about the lyrics and stuff like that, but I thought maybe you would know a little bit more about the album title as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, that's kind of not my strongest point, or my strongest suit, but, I could definitely, touch on the topic. It's kind of just, kind of points to everything being laid out in form. You can say that it's an understanding and acceptance of what you are and what you will become. And musically, it's kind of it just speaks as like a connection between everybody involved in it. In the songwriting itself.
Okay. Yeah, it was like one of those, like, as I was kind of thinking, I was like, I know some people like kind of talk about it, like, oh, what does this mean to you? And kind of like everyone gives their their own answer, within a band. And I know sometimes people just are like, someone throws out a thing and someone's like, yeah, that sounds cool, let's run with it. And there's really no meaning behind it. And then everyone will just spend, the better part of a year or two going like, I wonder what this means. There's some deeper meaning behind this. And you're like, no, not really.
I think, to be honest, I think, we kind of looked at it as something that has a lot of different meanings in different ways, but a lot of it kind of falls into, even just as a whole, how you can, everyone's kind of played their equal part, and, especially between the four of us, that there's no point of view that's been, given greater or lesser importance, and, all the points on the surface are equally accessible. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's it's just it kind of just represents us as a whole, I think, and in the many ways that we could look at it, it kind of just made sense to us, and it kind of, and just, verbally it had a nice flow to it as well. It kind of just clicked once we kind of started talking about it. It just seemed to just be it. We were happy with that. So
yeah. So when you guys have just recently put out Plasticine, the first single, quote unquote first single, I never know anymore if something's actually a first single or if it's more like the promotional single anymore, because a lot of labels do that now.
We'd actually put out one song before that too.
Lift?
But you're right. Like, I guess I would call it, Lift. I guess I don't know if, like you said, industry term. Is it technically a single if it's not, on the radio, or we put out that song with a kind of like a visual lyric video.
Yeah.
And we realized that by the time the record was probably going to be ready to come out, we were probably going to put a couple things out there. So after a little bit of time, we realized, all right, we need to get another song out. So that's when we put out Plasticine. And there's definitely more stuff to come. I think we're going to try to put out maybe one more song before we release a music video that we shot right about a month ago. It was like the first week of December for another song off the record. So we're definitely going to be putting a lot out there for people to see, in anticipation for the album itself.
Do you feel, because something I sometimes I think of when I, especially in talking with some of these bands that are, people from older bands, kind of pre-internet, the way the music industry kind of does things now. Like, I almost feel like at times there's like a sort of oversaturation. Like before it would be like, you'd get a record, you'd literally have the one song to kind of spurn the lead for, hey, I really want to buy this album when it comes out in, a month or two or whatever. And it seems like now, like, I do a Deftones discography discussion with Fallon from Kitty, or ex-Kitty at this point. But, something I remember with, like, Diamond Eyes specifically is they did a teaser video for, like, a week and a half or, like, a week where you just heard, like, the main riff to Rocket Skates. Then Rocket Skates comes out, then a video comes out, but the official first, like, single was technically Diamond Eyes. And then it's like, like you have all this promotional material now, it seems like, to where you're almost sort of oversaturating. And especially when it comes to, you put out, or a band's going to put out, like, we'll say a 10-song album or an 11-song album, and there's like 4 or 5 songs out before the record's even done. It's like, are you afraid of putting out too much to where maybe you're like going to dissuade people from like buying the record? Or, is there any kind of worry about that? Like, because I don't, or I don't know if my question's making quite a lot of sense on that, but.
No, I mean, not only does your question make sense, but it's kind of funny that you brought up this topic, because it's kind of hilarious, the learning curve that we've kind of all stepped into here, because I've been talking about it a lot lately. How it's definitely been tough. Not tough, but it's been a little bit of a challenge just to get comfortable with how to socially, how to push a band through social media. When A Life Once Lost, or when I left, and pretty much for all of A Life Once Lost existence as a band, it was pretty much before, Facebook was a huge tool for marketing as far as music goes.
Like, what, MySpace at that point?
Yeah, it was pretty much just MySpace, and I guess we had one. I'm pretty positive that we had one, but it was not even close to the, the animal that the internet is today for all that kind of stuff. And it's definitely just that, like getting used to all that stuff has definitely been tough. And as far as oversaturating or everything with this record, as far as it being an independent release, it's been. The first song we had put out was, just because we were ready. The record was done. It had been done for a little while, but we weren't sure what we were going to do, if we were going to find a label to put it out, whether we were going to put it out, what the best avenue was for us to start releasing music. We didn't want it to fly under the radar. We felt really good about it, and we didn't want to just throw it up on the internet and like try to get our friends to like our page. I mean, I appreciate all of our friends that liked our page, and all that, but we just knew that we needed to really strategically figure out how we were going to get ourselves out there to the public.
Right.
Especially being a band, like I said, that is brand new. We don't have, we have 2 songs out there, no full length, no management, no label, so it's a fun experience, but it's definitely just a little bit of a learning curve, just getting ourselves out there. But we hired some great PR people, Adrenaline PR, Natalie and Maria Ferraro. Maria Ferraro's been in the game for a long time, and she worked with A Life Once Lost and previously. So it was nice to have somebody that we were familiar with to help us get the ball rolling, and they've done a fantastic job so far. And, we've got like 25,000 views on our Facebook player, which is far more than we would have thought, for a bunch of nobodies,
Speaking kind of to the... Go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, kind of speaking to, that you have all these views and all that kind of stuff, has it been kind of surprising that overwhelmingly positive feedback that you've gotten from both Lift and more so Plasticine?
Yeah, it's amazing. We're really excited to see that people from all over are liking the stuff, and like you said, people are going to throw the Deftones reference around, but it's even the people that seem to be throwing that around. We're still getting a ton of them. That can't wait till the record come out, or have already we've got a ton of pre-orders for the record. I think that people that like that kind of music don't get it as often as they would like.
Right.
There's, a lot of the stuff nowadays, it's just a little bit different in sound. And I feel like we do have a little bit of that influence from, 90s bands that, a lot of people can kind of resonate with because it's what they grew up on, and there's just a lot of different sounds out there now, musically. And, we kind of just hope that we could, take our sound and reach people that are, into that kind of stuff, but in this modern day, and kind of just touch on everything a little bit,
Yeah. So something I often wonder, especially with, a band that has, members of a previous band in it and so forth, and what goes into picking, the first song or two to kind of represent what the band is about, and as far as sound, like the sound of the band and so forth, to kind of put out there and be like, this is what we are as the entity of Vexes. Like, what went into picking the song, or was it just kind of like we all kind of genuinely like these, Lift and Plasticine, and think these are like the best that we, to put out for a first representation of us?
Yeah, I think really it came down to us narrowing down a couple of songs that to us seemed like you said, really represented our sound without, losing steam anywhere. The songs that we're picking to put out to us seem to be the most captivating or the, the most energetic. And, because I feel like the album as a whole kind of has a lot of, a lot of ups and downs and, brings you to a lot of different places. And, some songs are more suitable, I think, for, a status of a single, or being, on a like a station or something like that. And some are just a little longer than your average, that really comes into play, at least in my head, when I'm thinking of a song to release. It's got to be, 3 to 5 minutes. Anything longer than that, I think you have the potential maybe for losing some people's attention,
Right. So you had kind of already mentioned that you had played out probably just locally. What are the plans for the band as far as like a touring live setting looking like? Is this going to be kind of like a sort of weekend warrior kind of thing, and just kind of branching out along the East Coast and doing things when it makes sense? Or are you guys trying to make a decent run at, touring quite a bit?
I think everything's still somewhat up in the air. We don't know what's going to happen. I think it's definitely going to, unless something crazy happens in the next couple of months or something, this is going to be an independent release. And like I said, even the amount of feedback and the type of feedback that we've gotten so far is a lot more than we expected right off the bat. So far we're real happy with the, little bit of success we've had, just getting the stuff out on the internet so far. And our first taste of like a social media marketing campaign,
Right.
But that's, and that's been great. So to be honest, we kind of just have to see what happens once we put this record out. We're all a little bit older, and like you and I have touched on before, it's, this is kind of like a second round for us, a little later in life. So to just jump in the van and go warrior style like we were 21 again. It might not be as realistic as we would like it to be. So kind of have to see, what happens once we start releasing, music video and the record and go from there and just see what kind of opportunities pop up. Just hope we can turn some heads and, maybe land some cool stuff that we would be able to get our asses out on the road for,
Yeah, for sure. Is there with an album like this, I feel like it would lend itself really well to vinyl. Is that something you guys are looking into, or a possibility, or just kind of want to see how it does in a digital age, in a digital format?
I think we all want to get it out on vinyl. We're already looking into it, and I think we've figured out somewhere that we're going to have press the record. So I would definitely say that, at some point, after the release, we'll be putting out something on vinyl. We all want to do that. So I'd say you definitely could plan on seeing that.
Yeah, just like I said, the two songs that I've heard, as I was listening to it, I was like, I could see, you put it on, I think, if I remember correctly, it was like 9 or 10 songs, I think, is what the album's going to be, the full, fully.
Yeah.
And it's like I could see.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. As I say, I could easily see it being one of those things where when you put it on, you get through to about track 5 or whatever, and then, flipping it over and just kind of really immersing oneself in the actual music listening process for an album like this, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, this record is definitely, the type of sound that, not only digitally it should, come through and sound great, but it's nice and warm for vinyl as well,
Yeah. So this is where I usually have the person plug the socials. You can plug your own or the band's, more importantly, and release date of the album.
Okay. All right. So, you want us to do our Facebook or our Instagram, or I know
all of the above.
Our Facebook. Well, let's see. Our Instagram is at We Are Vexes, Vexes. Let's see. We got our Bandcamp page where we're doing all our pre-orders from at the moment, which is let me just get that address for you. I'm not. It's Vexes, Vexes, and then 732 .bandcamp.com.
And
then
let's say so much fun that you have to learn all these things that you didn't necessarily have to for interviews.
Yeah, it's just hope sound like an old man here. And then we've got our Facebook page, which seems to be our bread and butter so far. Honestly, I'm not even sure I can tell you. You just got to search Vexes and look for us on there. I guess. I think most of our social media though now is at We Are Vexes.
As I say, that's what it is for Facebook.
Or We Are Vexes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the album Ancient Geometry is coming out February 23rd.
And then it looked like I had saw either on your Facebook page or on the band's. I don't know if this is still something you're looking for graphic design work, maybe for merch or something.
Yeah, I mean we want to definitely put out a lot of different merch. We really like all that stuff. So, we're always, I guess you could say, like accepting, submissions for any. Yeah. We're always looking for anybody that thinks that they might be able to come up with some cool artwork for us for anything, whether you're somebody who does album covers or T-shirts or logo designs, we'd love to just see what people out there have and what they're coming up with, and they might have something that'll work for us or, just might just fit, visually what we're going for, and be that kind of artist that's in our wheelhouse. So, more than welcome for people to hit us up and put a little link in there to any kind of portfolio or anything like that,
For sure. And then I always end these episodes with a song. It can be by anyone, or it could be your own. What would you like me to end this out to?
You know what? At this point, at this stage in the game, I should be pushing the band as much as possible. So
sure.
Let's go with one of our songs.
Okay.
I would say, let's do maybe Lift, since I think Plasticine reached a lot more people, and maybe they haven't heard Lift yet, so it wouldn't hurt to throw that in there if that's not too bad.
Yeah, and is there any like a background story or like something interesting about it, like maybe during the recording or something like that about it?
Not that I can think of. There's a really awesome visual lyric video that we had done. I don't know much about the artist, but he's somewhere in like the Czech Republic or something. And he does some really good work. Be glad to relay that information if anybody wants to reach out to us to find out who he is. But yeah, I would say go on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel and take a look at that video as well as listening to it. It's really cool and it's some really awesome stuff. Plus the lyrics are up there, so you can get familiar with that as well.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for your time on this chilly evening for both of us.
Yeah, totally.
And hopefully very soon, once the record's out, we'll be seeing you guys kind of hitting the road a little bit, and people will be able to check you guys out in a live setting.
Yeah, you're in Michigan, right?
I am. Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids. Yeah, we've been getting a lot of good feedback from Michigan, so we would love to get up there soon. I used to play up there a lot with Life and Floss, so we always had good times up in Michigan.
So that was my conversation with Justin Graves of the band Vexes, formerly of A Life Once Lost. As you heard, Ancient Geometry is coming out February 23rd, so we have another album to look forward to in this early year. If you would like to pre-order this album, you can head over to the Bandcamp page at vexes732.bandcamp.com and pre-order the album there. I believe it's just going to be a digital version only at this point. I don't think they have physical media for sale yet. I don't think that's what the pre-order is for. But I am eagerly awaiting that vinyl if they ever make it. This definitely is an album that I think would be really good to put on a record player and just kind of get immersed in. Also looking forward to seeing if this band ends up touring very much. It's always interesting when you find a band like this, like Vexes, that when you find them and find that they're like on a different area than you, like with them being out on the East Coast and I'm here in the Midwest or wherever you may happen to live if it's not the East Coast, that you may not get to see this band. And it's always kind of rough because you're like, well, I really want to see this band. And so I'm hoping that the album will do well and that there will be enough of a want for the band to kind of hit the road a little bit here in 2018 and kind of at least get to the East Coast, Midwest, the South, and maybe even the West Coast and just kind of break it down in like little Weekend Warrior type stuff. All that being said, if you would like to follow the band to find out when and if they are going to tour and some merch and all that kind of stuff and just basically support the band as a whole, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram at We Are Vexes. That's VEXES. And if you would like to follow them on Twitter, you can follow them at capital V, capital E, capital X, capital E, capital S, US. That's Vexes US, but the Vexes is all capitalized. If you would like to follow Mosh Pit Nation, our partner of the podcast, you can follow them on moshpitnation.com. You can find them on Facebook at Mosh Pit Nation West MI, capital MI. You can find them on Instagram and Twitter at Mosh Pit Nation. And if you would like to follow me, as I said earlier in the intro, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at John's Entitled Podcast. You can tweet at me at John's Entitled Pod, or you can email me at johnsentitledpod@gmail.com. Also, huge, you can now rate and review on Facebook. I don't know what it does. Apparently it's a new thing that they're probably going to start judging us on, and numbers that we will start needing. But if you could rate and review me on Facebook, that would be great. I don't think I've gotten one yet. But also of importance, do the same across any of the other ways that you are getting this podcast. SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. Rate, review, subscribe. Any of those things are all greatly appreciated, and they help tremendously. And as I will beat to death this year, in early 2018, I am going to beat it to death. I want this podcast to go to the next level. I want to get all kinds of different guests, and I don't want something as remedial as Facebook likes or my internet reach and all that kind of stuff to slow me down. So if you are listening to this, whatever you're listening to this on, please just go and subscribe. I only post an episode a week. I don't post a lot of shit. on my socials. Typically, it's just, hey, I got a new episode out, or hey, I'm doing some research on a band. And typically, if you see me post something like, hey, I'm doing research, that either means I have that person or someone from that thing coming up, or I have already reached out to that person or someone from that band, and I'm just trying to get some background info, maybe that all that kind of stuff. So that's a little decoding message whenever I post something on my socials. I would definitely say Instagram, you're going to see more random pictures, especially when I get ready to go travel. Records I'm listening to and so forth. Like I posted the Twitching Tongues Disharmony album I was listening to last night. Snapchat, if you guys want to follow me on that, I think it's just Johnson Title Pod. I don't know. But regardless, you'll just see me typically not doing a whole lot. Twitter, I get more into that because I can just post random thoughts and ideas, and I don't have friends really follow, like legitimate real life friends follow me on that, so I don't feel as bad posting shit on there. You're probably going to see me going a lot crazier on Twitter with the NFL playoffs coming up. And if you guys watched the wild card weekend, what a fucking weekend that was. The Mariota touchdown to himself. Holy shit. I actually texted to me and was like, holy fuck, that catch. And some of the memes I've seen come out from it are really fucking great. The NBA season's getting into full swing right now. We're just at about All-Star break. Actually, this morning I saw someone post a sort of rant some father went on about how Jordan and Kobe suck and LeBron is great. As someone who does like LeBron and I don't necessarily understand all the hate that he gets as far as, how good he really is, it was funny to watch someone rip on Jordan and basically say that Jordan fucking lost from 84 to 89. Yeah, 89. Basically getting beat by all these better teams, the bad boy Piston teams, the Lakers teams, and all this. And then they were like, oh, so when he beats, when he won his first ring and he beat, the LA, who did he beat? Oh, it was, Magic in his last year after he got, the AIDS virus and everybody else was gone. And then when he beat Portland, like they had fucking nobody. And then when he beat, all these people, like, oh, they didn't have anybody. And then he goes and plays baseball. And with just, basically Scottie Pippen and them, they won one less game, I think, that year than they did the year before with Jordan going to the finals and winning. And he was like, so, I mean, the team didn't do any better or really any less than with you on the team. And then those 3 years that you came back and won those championships, you beat the Sonics team that basically just had Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, but they didn't really beat anybody on their way to the finals, so they were really nobody, like paper champions of the Western Conference. And then it's like you play Stockton and Malone, who are like almost in their like mid-30s. So of course you should have won, and you had Scottie Pippen, and you had like a fucking stacked team. And then he was talking about how, if Kobe Bryant was the shit, they fucking got swept actually by the Pistons in what, 03 or 04? And then he goes, and LeBron basically beat those same Pistons a year later all by himself, scoring 34 points in a row to take them to the finals. I mean, granted, they got swept by San Antonio that year, but is what it is. And he's talking about how LeBron has gone to 7 finals in a row, something that like no one's really done, especially in the modern era of basketball. And I mean, it was it was kind of hard to sit there and like listen to all that and not be like, I mean, these are facts. So, I mean, it is what it is. I really love sports, and I know I don't really get to talk a ton about sports on here, but this is like one of my favorite times of the year. The NFL is in, great playoff mode. Get to see all these like things play out. The Lions are out of it, but we might be getting the defensive coordinator for New England, and the fact that we haven't made any leeway as far as who we're taking makes me think that because they can't announce who the coach is until the playoffs are pretty much done, or until a team's eliminated, makes me think that it might be Patricia from the New England Patriots. So I'm excited to see how this football season plays out. I'm excited to see what the Lions do. I'm excited to see where college football season is going to go. It was another great national championship game, going into overtime again. Well, it didn't go into overtime last year, I don't think, but still basically a nail-biter. This college football playoff thing is great. I love it, even though Michigan, which is my team, didn't make it in, but be that as it may. I'm loving sports right now, and I'm really excited that baseball is getting ready to start up in the next couple of months. I have a trip coming up to Chicago planned, and I saw that the Braves are playing. The Chicago Cubs, and I'm excited to go and see my Braves and support them and get my chop on, and also go see Wrigley Field, someplace I've always wanted to go and never seen. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for football. Basketball is in like almost the mid-season form, so I'm loving that. And I would love to get some people on to talk some fucking sports. Doc Coyle, I am going to tag the shit out of you and everything and get your ass on this fucking podcast so we can talk some fucking sports. So with all that being said, when I was working on this episode, the band actually released a new song today as of when I'm recording this. The song is called Helion, and it's a little bit different of a song than what they've already been putting out between Lift and Plasticine. But I sent a thing out to Natalie from Adrenaline PR, and I was like, hey, can I get that song too to include on this episode? And she obliged. So we're actually going to do something a little bit different on this podcast, and we are going to put 2 songs at the end of this one. So we are going to start off by playing Lift, which was the first single they put out, and then we're going to end it right after that with Helion, which is the new song. Again, if you would like to if you like these 2 songs, you can head over to Bandcamp, Vexes732.bandcamp.com, and pre-order this album, Ancient Geometry, which comes out on February 23rd. So without further ado, this is Lift, followed by Helion. Talk to you next week.